Every year, the Oscars highlight the best movies and performances of the year, but comic book adaptations rarely get nominated for anything but technical awards. And while it seems like the Oscars have it out for comic book movies, they actually have a long history of nominating them. Join us as we look at every single DC and Marvel adaptation to earn an Oscar nomination, and the relatively small number that actually won. The influential Max Fleischer Superman cartoon would later inspire Batman the Animated Series, and it was the first comic book adaptation to get nominated for an Academy Award. It was up for Best Animated Short Subject, but lost to the Mickey Mouse cartoon Lend a Paw. Superman returned to the Oscars 37 years later and earned nominations for Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and Best Original Score. It lost all three categories to The Deer Hunter and Midnight Express, but did earn a Special Achievement Oscar for its visual effects, which made audiences believe a man could fly. Superman may have earned the first Oscar nominations for a comic book movie, but Batman won the first comic book movie Oscar ever. Tim Burton's iconic film won for Best Art Direction, the only category in which it was nominated. Tim Burton's sequel, Batman Returns, earned 2 Oscar nominations for Best Visual Effects and Best Makeup.
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
It lost the Visual Effects Oscar to the horror comedy Death Becomes Her, and the Makeup Oscar to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Joel Schumacher's first Batman movie was nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Sound, and Best Sound Effects Editing. It lost all 3 categories. Too bad Best Bat Nipples isn't a thing. Barry Sonnenfeld's sci-fi comic book adaptation won the Academy Award for Best Makeup and was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Original Score for a musical or comedy. It lost Best Art Direction to Titanic and lost Best Musical Comedy Score to The Full Monty. But the original Malibu comic book series was acquired by Marvel in 1994, making this the first Oscar win for a Marvel movie, technically.
What's so funny, Edwards?
Your boy Captain America over here.
Sam Raimi's record-shattering blockbuster Spider-Man was nominated for 2 Oscars for Best Visual Effects and Best Sound. It lost to The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and the Best Picture-winning musical, Chicago. Raimi's sequel won for Best Visual Effects and was nominated for Best Sound Mixing and Best Sound Editing. It lost on those last 2, though, to the biopic Ray and The Incredibles. Typical Peter Parker luck. Christopher Nolan's first Batman movie was only nominated for 1 Academy Award for Best Cinematography. It lost to the historical epic Memoirs of a Geisha. It may not have jump-started the franchise, but Superman Returns did earn an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects, only to lose to Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. Christopher Nolan's second Batman blockbuster was the first comic book adaptation to earn an Academy Award in an above-the-line category for Best Supporting Actor for the late Heath Ledger. It also won for Best Sound and got nominations for Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Art Direction, Best Makeup, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. The first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie earned 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects, but Tony Stark doesn't have much pull with the Academy, and it lost sound editing to The Dark Knight and visual effects to The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. The second Iron Man movie earned another nomination for Best Visual Effects, but lost to Nolan's mind-bending Inception. The ambitious superhero team-up, The Avengers, assembled for just 1 Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. It lost to Ang Lee's Life of Pi. Iron Man 3 kept the streak alive, earning yet another nomination for Best Visual Effects and losing once again, this time to Gravity. Disney's animated Marvel Comics adaptation won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, making it the biggest Oscar win for a Marvel movie to date. The second Captain America movie earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects, but it lost to Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. The first Guardians of the Galaxy was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Visual Effects and Best Makeup. It lost makeup to The Grand Budapest Hotel, and like Winter Soldier, lost visual effects to Interstellar. The X-Men epic Days of Future Past earned a nomination for Best Visual Effects, but not even time travel could help the film win. It too lost to Interstellar. Scott Derrickson's trippy superhero blockbuster Doctor Strange earned an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects, but lost the award to Disney's remake of The Jungle Book. The supervillain team-up Suicide Squad earned an Academy Award for Best Makeup. It may not have been the first Oscar for a DC Comics movie, but it was the first for a DC Extended Universe movie. The sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy has earned an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects and will compete against Blade Runner 2049, Kong Skull Island, Star Wars The Last Jedi, and War for the Planet of the Apes at this year's Academy Awards. The final chapter in Hugh Jackman's Wolverine saga earned the first ever Best Adapted Screenplay nomination for a film based on a superhero comic book. It will compete against the dramas Call Me By Your Name, Molly's Game, and Mudbound, as well as the comedy The Disaster Artist at this year's Academy Awards. That's every time Marvel and DC movies went to the Oscars so far, so let us know which ones you think should have won in the comments, and for more comic book movie coverage, be sure to check out what the cast of Black Panther wants to see in the sequel, or our breakdown of the latest trailer for Deadpool 2. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe to IGN on all of your favorite platforms.